Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy. I'd love to be your go-to guide for all things wine, food, and the amazing places they take us. Here on Pour and Explore, we'll sip, savor, and wander through the exciting world of wine, discuss incredible cuisines, and uncover the stories behind unforgettable destinations. Each week, I'll bring you lively conversations with wine experts, chefs, travel pros, and fellow enthusiasts. We'll share practical tips, hilarious tales, and plenty of inspiration to fuel your next adventure. So grab a glass, pull up a chair, and join me as we pour, explore, and celebrate the good life. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back to Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy, sommelier, winemaker, classically trained chef, and a guy who believes that wine should be fun, approachable, and something that connects us all. On today's episode, I am joined by someone who's shaking up the way younger generations experience wine. Katina Burke is the founder of Next Gen Wino. It's a new online platform and white glove travel service, really, that is designed to connect millennials and Gen Z wine lovers with authentic wineries, welcoming tasting rooms, and unforgettable travel experiences. Katina's story is a fun one, from growing up outside Chicago to studying economics and political science in Texas to working in private equity before realizing her true passion was bringing people into the wine world. She is on a mission, everyone, to break down the intimidation factor around wine, highlight small producers who don't always get the spotlight, and create memorable journeys for a whole new audience of wine drinkers. I absolutely love what she does. Today, we're going to talk about her vision for Next Gen Wino, why she believes millennials and Gen Z actually do love wine. They just want it to be presented differently. How she is curating authentic experiences and how she goes beyond the glossy tasting rooms and her own favorite travel and wine adventures from Buenos Aires to Sicily and everything in between. Now, if you've ever felt overwhelmed walking into a wine shop, curious about planning a trip into wine country, or you just want to hear from someone who's working hard making wine more approachable for the next generation, you are going to love this conversation. Stay tuned. Katina, thank you so much for being on the show today. Awesome to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get started.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot wait to tell my audience about this awesome thing that you're doing called Next Gen Wino. It sounds so amazing. We had an awesome conversation about it a few weeks ago, and I'm excited to have you here to talk about it. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about you. Let's get some basics on where Katina Burke comes from. And I think the first place is you're a Chicago girl.
Yes, I am. I was born about 20 minutes north of the city, and I basically spent my entire life here minus a 6-year stint down in Fort Worth, Texas, where I went to TCU. And yeah, I studied economics and political science down there. My traditional career was being in investment banking and private equity. There was a slowdown in the market over the past couple of years, and I really always enjoyed wine my whole life. In fact, when there's like photos of me in college at frat parties with a bottle of wine instead of like the jungle juice,
Right.
because I just always preferred wine to anything else. And so I started studying wine, and which led me to kind of what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. So, you're a huge advocate for wine, which I love and certainly appreciate, as the wine guy. This idea that you had to create this, as it stands now, a web-based online platform to connect the new generations, of wine drinkers to the people that are out there actually producing the wine and selling the wine and so on. I love the concept. Tell us about Next Gen Wino.
Yeah. So, like I said, I have always loved wine. Out of all of my friends, I probably am the one that really enjoys wine the most, knows about wine the most. And I feel myself constantly like trying to pull my friends into this ecosystem. And sometimes it's hard because the wine industry can come off as scary or standoffish. I mean, you go to the grocery store and there's like so much, it's analysis paralysis.
Yep.
And so I really feel though I fell in love with wine when I was traveling. And I've been really privileged to be all over the country, all over the world, and taste really good wine. And I, would ask my friends, like, do you want to go to Napa? Do you want to go out to the Finger Lakes? And they were like, oh, well, I mean, it's kind of expensive and I like wine, but not enough to dedicate an
Mhm.
entire vacation to it. And so that kind of got me thinking, like, okay, so I prioritized going out to wine regions, fell even deeper in love with wine, but a lot of people aren't even giving it the chance because it might be unattainable. They have disposable income. Millennials and Gen Z have disposable income, but they don't feel the connection to wine like I did, right? So
Yep.
I was like, how do I try to help further the love of wine for more people in my demographic, in my generation? And that's kind of how I thought of Next Gen Wino, which is really it's a two-pronged approach. One is it's a way and a place for people that are interested in wine to go to the social media page, follow us, and see which wineries, which restaurants, which wine shops have like our stamp of approval. And our stamp of approval includes like, is the vibe good? Is the
Mhm.
staff friendly? Are you gonna get laughed out because you didn't swirl your wine glass
Right,
correctly?
right.
Is the wine drinkable? All of these things that make an experience really well. Obviously, tasting rooms are gorgeous, and a lot of times you go to a beautiful tasting room and you have an okay time, but most of the good experience, the best experiences that I've had in wine is in like some winemaker's kitchen,
Mhm.
really learning about the wine because they invested their time back in me after I invested my time in them. So I'm traveling all over the country right now to try and identify who are these like next gen wino stamp of approval wineries. And then I'm going to also help you plan trips. So working with wineries, trying to get reduced pricing on wine tastings, reduced pricing on hotels to really allow people to see that wine country travel is attainable for them too.
You described to me earlier the service that you're providing, this awesome service that you're providing as a white glove service. So you're really looking at a very high touch, high class, if you will. Maybe that's not the right word, service, to people. Obviously, going after zennials, millennials, and so on, which I think is a great idea. There's so much chatter. If anyone has their finger on the pulse of the wine business or just the wine world. We hear every day of the week that zennials, millennials, whatever you want to call them, they're not drinking wine. But I completely agree with you. I feel, and my philosophy is exactly that. It's too overhyped. It's too overblown. It's too snooty. It's over pretentious, things like that. And that's not what we want. Now, I'm not one of them. I'm a Gen Xer here, folks. But I believe 100% that you have to be able to roll with the punches, roll with the generations, and start doing things a different way. I've met really, really great people that feel the same way coming from here in the States, of course. We just talked about Priscilla Hennecum, who is absolutely amazing. She is at the forefront of wine marketing for millennials and zennials out of Australia. And we have to start thinking differently, as people in the wine industry.
Yeah, I think that also hand in hand with hearing that millennial and Gen Z consumers aren't drinking wine, at the same time and in the same breath, people are like, "Oh, millennials and Gen Z aren't buying things, they're traveling," right?
Correct.
They're doing things that are experiential, skydiving, going to Europe, going on cruises, whatever it is. And traditional wine marketing, well, actually, wine largely hasn't even had to do much marketing. I mean, look at like wine labels. It's like a picture of a chateau and a name. And it works. It has worked. But for a generation that has had so many things marketed to them in a way that feels authentic, that feels like they belong, it hasn't been until probably the past 5 years that some wine brands have started to really lean in to millennial Gen Z by leaning on influencers and
Hmm.
social media campaigns, which only I think is like half of it, right? Any influencer can get paid to hawk any product. I think though that if you can go to talk with a winemaker, talk with a sommelier that really understands and believes in their own people, their own generation, that then those people that have experienced that will tell other people. Like there has to be that buy-in from the generation. And I think that there's a lot of wine curious people on the
Hmm.
sidelines that will love to go to Trader Joe's and pick up a bottle of $5 Vino Verde, which is so good. And they've probably considered going on a trip to Sonoma or New Buffalo, Michigan, because I'm from Chicago, but they haven't pulled the trigger because even when I go traveling to wine regions, I don't know where to go. And the wineries that have the budget, they pay influencers to flood the zone. So I was just in Paso a couple
Hmm.
of weeks ago doing some due diligence. I found some incredible wineries, but when I looked on TikTok about where to go, it was the same 3 or 4 wineries that were owned by big corporations.
Hmm.
And yes, the tasting rooms were really pretty, but the level of service was subpar. The wine was fine. Like I tasted a lot of better wines from smaller producers. And if that's your only experience in Paso is going to wineries where you're just a number, but looking at something beautiful, I don't know if you're going to prioritize going to Sonoma or Napa or wherever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved what you said about meeting the consumers where they are. That is uber important in sales and marketing, period. But besides social media, or maybe even including social media, what are the ways that wineries are successfully communicating with the younger generation of wine drinkers?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think that right now, in Chicago at least, I'm seeing a lot of smaller, like small production, like 1,000 cases to a couple thousand cases, come to local wine shops in Chicago to be in
Mm-hmm.
person. Those are typically affordable. I've also
Hmm.
seen a lot of great producers come for wine dinners in
Hmm.
Chicago, which
Yeah,
I think is a great idea, but per plate, it's like $175 per person, which really prices out basically everyone that's a millennial and a Gen Z. But they're doing a really good job at marketing to Gen X and the boomers because they have that much money to spend on that. Also, there's this new orange wine that is from Spain. It's called
hmm.
Ablo Gulp or Gulp Ablo or something. It's this
Okay.
orange wine. It tastes like a Sauvignon Blanc. It plays off the popularity of Sauvignon Blanc because everyone's drinking it right now.
Right.
And I'm hosting Next Gen Wino is hosting a So You Think You Like Sauvy B wine tasting because that's what everyone likes right now. And so
Yeah.
if I can say, oh, well, you like Sauvy B, you're probably going to like an Albarino. You're probably going to like a Vermentino. You're probably going to like an unoaked Chardonnay from Oregon, right? Like
Right.
those are things that you're probably going to like. People are going to learn. And I've seen some wineries do that. I've seen some winery, like most not do that, which I think they should. I hope they take this idea and run with it because more is more. I think that in this time, there's no place for anyone to be competitive with each other because everyone wants it to grow downstream. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing right now.
Okay. Obviously trends in any industry shape, how we do things, but trends in the wine industry. I mean, I've been in the wine industry so long to remember, the whole Merlot fiasco after the movie Sideways, came about. And even when I, was part owner in a winery and making wine up in Monterey County, we actually had about an acre and a third of Sauvignon Blanc in our vineyard and wound up tearing it out and replanting with Chardonnay because Sauvignon Blanc was not selling, and that was probably around 2010, 2009, something like that. maybe a
Wow.
little bit later. And people were not at that time drinking Sauvignon Blanc. So we planted Chardonnay instead and it sold. But now here we are 10 plus years later. And now all of a sudden Sauvignon Blanc's all the rage again. And I also love what you said about, turning people on to other wines beyond the SB world that have a lot of the same characteristics, a lot of the same flavor profiles, aroma profiles, and things like that. I just had a great conversation with someone yesterday talking about the same thing, Sauvignon Blanc, and going to Spanish Verdejo and Vermentino from Italy. And, there's just so many beautiful wines out there that are Sauvignon Blanc like, but they don't necessarily get the attention that they should because the market is now flooded with SB everywhere.
Right. And I actually think like Sauvignon Blanc is good. Like Kim Crawford did a great job
Yeah.
getting Sauvignon Blanc on the map. But I actually think that people are just looking for wine that is crushable and drinkable. And people know Sauvignon Blanc, they've had it. It's relatively inexpensive. So
Mhm.
they lean towards that. But like my friends, if I order a bottle of Gruner, right? They love it. And they don't really care what they're drinking. They know that they love it. They know it's not Sauvignon Blanc, and maybe they'll order it again if they like can remember that long name of the wine.
Right.
But I think that that also kind of moves back into the people wanting authenticity and like not the snobbiness because in the wine world everyone's like the most aged and the most complex wines, like obviously to people that have a trained palate and like that, that's fine. But this current generation, they like young wines, they like wines that
Mhm.
are crushable. If there's a chill on it, great. And I think that good wine speaks for itself. I
Mhm.
think people get headaches a lot from drinking cheap wine because that's what they know and there's added fillers and sugars. But if we can start to just show people that like a good bottle of wine that's cost $20 doesn't have any added sugar, it doesn't have any added
Mhm.
flavor, and one glass is the same amount of calories as a White Claw. Like if we can actually do that, I think that people will then bridge the gap between, oh, I like wine, I feel good drinking wine, and maybe I should like go on a vacation with my girlfriends or with my fiance or whatever and
Mhm.
learn more. I think that that kind of, it has to be both. It can't just be like my solution of having people travel to
Mhm.
drink wine or just social media influencers telling people what I just said. It has to be both. And there also has to be buy-in from winemakers that care about the next generation, hotels and hospitality groups and Travel Paso and Travel Napa and all these like these organizations, they need to buy in also.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a lot of junk out there, and we have to, find a way to wade through it. My listeners know, and my motto is you drink what you like. And you don't necessarily know what you like until you get out there and experience it. So
Right?
let's talk about those experiences. We've talked about what Next Gen Wino is. Let's talk about how it works. So break it down for the audience. What's the experience going to look like from clicking on, I'm going to guess, nextgenwino.com?
Great guess.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, so on the website, you'll be able to see the regions that we serve currently. We're looking to expand. We're launching in probably October, September, October time with roughly 5 regions: Paso Robles, Willamette Valley, New Buffalo. I'm hoping also Sonoma. And I'm going on a trip to North Carolina. So hopefully, I'm hopeful that North Carolina they have some great wine out there. So I'm hopeful that that also has some legs. And you'll be able to send me an inquiry because, like we said at the top of the show, this is truly a white glove service.
Yeah.
I want to get to know you. I don't want to just sell you a PDF with some wineries that I've given my stamp of approval. You'll always be able to access the wineries that I've approved, that Next Gen Wino has approved. And if you want, you can go plan your own trip. But if you don't really know where to start, you reach out to me, I give you a call, and I learn a little bit about you. What's your price range? What do you like drinking? Do you even know what you like drinking? What are your values? Do you care about regenerative farming? Do you care about women grown or women winemakers? Do you care about, Latino winemakers? Whatever it is, we can kind of fit this to a way that makes it feel authentic to you. Then I send you some options for like hotels. I give you restaurant recommendations, and everything is planned out for you. The only thing you're going to have to book for yourself is your airplane ticket. You book the trip, and then the first thing that happens is you're offered a complimentary virtual wine tasting featuring wines from the region that you've decided that you want to go.
Nice.
And you're essentially going to kind of like get a preview of what you can expect at a winery out there. So you feel confident, you know how to smell wine, you know how wine opens up, you know what things taste like, how to swish the wine around in your mouth, so that
Mhm.
when you're sitting there, you feel empowered, you feel confident, and you feel ready to go. Then you go on your trip, you hopefully have a great time,
Yeah.
and you come back, you let me know how it went, and maybe you go on another trip in a year. It's very experiential based. Like, I want to create the next generation of wine lovers. I want to create the people that are going to carry the wine industry the next 50 to 60 years.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds really amazing. Obviously, you're working with the wineries, you're working with hotels for accommodations. I believe you mentioned to me earlier that you're looking at some transportation rather, companies as well. How about things outside of wine? Because you're not necessarily going to drink wine for, 10 hours a day. Will there be any other activities included?
Yes, absolutely. So, luckily, wine regions are typically located in places that are beautiful and full of
Yes.
nature.
Yes.
So, whether that is a guided hike or a bike ride, there's a lot of like hot air balloons that you can do, cooking classes for people that are not outdoorsy. Also, we're typically where wine grows, olive trees grow. So, there's also some cool opportunities for olive oil. And also, if you have kids, there's a lot of cool places that you can take your kids that you might really have to dig the internet for. So, yes, you're not going to be drinking the entire day. I don't personally like going to more than 2 to 3 tastings a day. And I definitely like going to a restaurant at the end of the night that's cocktail based or good mocktails. Sometimes I don't even want to drink
Sure.
at the end of the night after wine tasting. But yeah, it's completely full service, tailored exactly to how and what you want. If your partner likes beer, there can be breweries that we put in there, like
Hmm.
completely tailored. And I think that that's what I wish existed when I first started planning my trips out to like Napa. I remember going to a couple of travel agents because I didn't know anything about Napa,
Right.
and they gave me very generic wineries that you,
Hmm.
like I said, if you just go on Instagram and you look up Napa wineries, you can see
Right.
the big ones that have the money to place targeted ads. And so I did that on my first trip out to Napa, and they were gorgeous. Like, there were really beautiful wine tasting rooms out there. The wine was good, but I didn't feel like I learned anything. I wasn't hooked until I went to one winery that a som that I had met through a wine tasting class in Chicago had recommended to me on Howell
Hmm.
Mountain. It's called Robert Foley.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and they had a barn, and they had like stray cats walking around. And I sat there with Robert Foley and his wife for 2.5, 3 hours,
Wow.
just learning about their history, the wine that they make, their friends, their family. Like, it just felt like sitting at a dinner table with a friend.
Yes.
And that made me go back to Napa because I was like, there has to be more of those.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the most beautiful. I mean, their property was gorgeous. It was on Howell Mountain,
Of course.
but
Yeah.
the tasting room wasn't millions and millions of dollars. It was
Right.
functional, and the experience was priceless. And when you look at Millennial and Gen Z as a whole, that's what they look for. They look for authentic opportunities to better themselves, to further themselves, and to have fun. And so those are the experiences that I'm
Yeah.
curating, not things that you can look up on the internet. I can promise you, working with Next Gen Wino, the wineries that I send you to, you'll probably have not heard of.
Of course. Yeah.
And that's the point. Like, I also, from a winery perspective, want to help the smaller producers who don't have the marketing budget to spend so much money to connect with their next generation of consumers. Like, I think that those smaller producers have so much more to give. And I think that that makes a really good pair, like the synergy of those two needs, it just fits really well.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You have to meet your consumer where they are. And with people waking up a little bit more, the people who market for the wineries, or if they're doing it themselves, they need to find a way to get to where their consumers are. And, a service like yours sounds like an amazing way, to make that connection, bridge that gap between the people who want to show that really experiential wine experience, for for lack of a better term, and the consumers, the people with the money, the people who actually want to experience, things. So a service like yours sounds absolutely invaluable. I want to change gears just a little bit. Part of the service that you're offering is travel, which I think is great. And, we love to talk about travel on Pour and Explore. You're traveling all over the world, traveling all over the country. Give me two highlights, the coolest places you've been, and whether it's a city or a restaurant or a winery, just two places that have just absolutely blown you away.
I would say that the first that comes to my head is Buenos Aires. I was there in November of 2023, and I actually went down for the Taylor Swift concert because it was cheaper to go fly all the way down there to go see Taylor Swift, which, okay, by the way, that's like the blueprint for millennials spending money on experiences. Anyways,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
digress. But as an American going down there, the US dollar was so strong compared to the Argentinian peso. And we were able to eat amazing food, drink spectacular wine. The hospitality down there was unmatched. I think South America often gets overlooked by Americans for Europe, for Asia, which fair because it's also like those are great places too. But that was probably one of the standout vacations that I was even most surprised about because I wasn't expecting it to be as amazing as was. Like we got like a tomahawk steak for like 40 US dollars. Like that would be
Wow.
hundreds of dollars here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did some wine tasting down there too in Mendoza. Like it was and beautiful and great resorts, like just the pinnacle of hospitality I felt and for a really good price range. And then I guess the second place that I was at recently before it became popular, I was in Sicily. I'm part Sicilian.
No, okay.
And I discovered my favorite red wine, which is called Frappato. It's like a chilled red wine. Talk about crushable. That's a crushable patio pounder, especially with like a pizza or something. And no, I was in Sicily. I had actually met some of my Sicilian family members for the first
Oh,
time, which was really cool. They live in this little town outside of Palermo. The beaches were lovely. The people were lovely. The food was obviously amazing. There's so much history there. I didn't realize Sicily had been conquered like so many times by
yes.
so
Yeah.
many different places, which is why there's so much different influence in Sicily in terms of cuisine, which I didn't know. And so, yeah, I'd say that those were my two most recent, or not, they weren't that recent, but those trips still like stick out in my mind.
Argentina is absolutely awesome. I've not been there. Great wines from Argentina. I just did a Sicilian wine tasting a couple weeks ago at my favorite wine bar here in San Diego, and it was an eye-opening experience. Just, great wines. I mean, Nero d'Avola, of course, great wine from Sicily, but he came out, Roberto, a good friend of mine, came out with all of these great wines. I think we went through 6 or 7 wines from Sicily, and it was just absolutely mind blowing. I had a really, really good time.
Yeah, those Etna wines are spectacular. Like for
Yes.
the volcanic soil and what it does to the grapes. I mean, it's wonderful. And you think volcano and you think like, oh, Santorini, right? Like volcanic ash, Santorini, but I think that the Sicilian Etna designation is spectacular.
Yeah, totally. I did an episode not too long ago about terroir, and I talked a lot about volcanic soils and, what that does to wine. Thinking about wines from Sicily, wines from the Pompeii region, that Amalfi
Hmm.
Coast, and inland and so on. Wines from Baja, Mexico. They have such an intense rustic quality to them, and I love everything about them. Well, very, very cool. What you're doing is awesome. I definitely appreciate it. Things are going to be launching at around the same time that this episode's going to go live. So I'm excited to see the synergy between when this launches and start getting clicks on that website there. A new segment that I've added to my podcast recently is a little bit of a lightning round to get us out here. All right. You ready
Awesome.
for lightning round, Katina?
I am ready.
All right, fantastic. Not Cabernet Sauvignon, not Pinot Noir, not Merlot, your favorite red wine.
Well, I feel like I kind of said it with Frappato earlier,
Mhm.
but I also went as close. Well, I'd say they're neck and neck. I love a Dolcetto.
Love it. Love it. You've been traveling around the world and you have to have a great travel hack to share with our audience.
I would say upgrading with points to travel across the ocean is my one of my biggest travel hacks and or this website called point.me. It's a way that
Hmm.
you can find low point business class fares, which
Yep.
make my energy levels way better to like start the trip. So I would say that those are my two biggest
Yeah.
tricks.
Points at me is awesome. There's also another one out there called, it's a weird name, but it totally works. It's called Jay Goot. It's just get out of town.
Oh,
That's
I haven't
another
heard
one
that
to look
one.
in. Yeah, check that one out. I met the owner of Jay Goot earlier this year on the Marketers Cruise in the Caribbean, and he's an awesome guy. And he's got this great program going on for how to spin your spending into points for travel. So I'll give a plug for him right here. Your absolute favorite food and wine pairing?
I would probably go with oysters, East Coast oysters with Sancerre and truffle French fries. Those are probably that's like my favorite girl dinner, and maybe a Caesar
Ooh,
salad to throw it in also.
you're making me hungry. That sounds good.
I know.
And you've traveled a bunch of different places. What's the one place that you could see picking up roots from Chicago and going there to live permanently?
You know, for a long time, I used to say Italy because I loved it out
Mm,
there, or I do love it out there. But the more time that I spend out in the Sonoma, Napa area, it feels like I lived a past life there. Like there's
yeah.
just something that continues to pull me in that direction. So I think maybe a piece of property somewhere in the Sonoma area with some olive trees sounds really good.
Love it, love it. There's a little town in southern Sonoma County called Petaluma,
Oh,
and I've
yeah.
always said to myself that if I were going to live anywhere, maybe after I retire, I love being in the city. I'm a city boy. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I live in San Diego. I spent about 16 years in small town California making wine, but I could see myself going to Petaluma in southern Sonoma County and just amazing olive trees, wines, great food, easy access. It's an awesome place to be. Katina, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. We're excited to see Next Gen Wino come live September or October of 2025. Make sure you check it out. I will have all of Katina's links in the show notes. So please go down and check that out. It's an awesome service. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right. What a great conversation with Katina. Thank you again so much for being on the show. I love what she's building with Next Gen Wino. It's fresh, it's exciting, and it's exactly the kind of approach that's going to keep the wine industry alive and thriving for the next 50 years. We have a lot of the same philosophies, she and I was so glad I got to meet her and was lucky enough
to have her on Pour and Explore. So thank you very much again, Katina. Be sure to check the show notes for all of Katina's links. You're going to find those in notes. Follow Next Gen Wino and keep an eye out for the launch later this year. We should be airing this sometime in September, October, but she is ready to put her child out into the world. Next Gen Wino. It's going to be amazing. I know I'm going to be getting it, and I highly encourage you to as well. If you're looking for authentic, curated wine travel experiences, she is creating something really, really special, and we're very, very much simpatico in that way. So, really, really awesome. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to Pour and Explore wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to watch me on video, you head over to YouTube. If you just want to hear me drone on if you want to hear me talk about super exciting things when it comes to wine, food, and travel, head on over to Apple, Spotify, or one of those other cool places that you can listen, and make sure you subscribe and follow so you never miss one of these conversations. While you're at it, go show Katina some love and subscribe to Next Gen Wino's channels too. You're going to find those in the notes, because supporting each other is what it's all about. Thank you so much for your time today, everybody. Thank you again to Katina. Until next time, my friends, keep wondering and wandering. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Pour and Explore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, or your questions, so you can drop me a line at cheers@thewineguy.vin. That's cheers@thewineguy.vin. Or let's connect on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Grab those links on my website at thewineguy.vin. Until next time, let's keep wondering and wandering. Cheers, everyone.